My intention over the next few months is to really focus on the opening and the opening moves in backgammon. The little study group I'm in, I'd done video notes before on Mitchie's endgame technique book, and it was great and really very helpful. But you don't always get to play the endgame. The thing about the opening is we always play the opening. We would have doubled ourselves out of it before we started. So that's why the opening is so important. And also, a lot of the principles that are apply will help with the game. I also conscious that while we'll be looking at, I intend to go through Mitchie's book, Opening Concepts, in detail. I'll also be, I've just bought myself the 3 volumes that Bill Roberti has done on the opening in backgammon, and I heard him say that, we've a habit of kind of going little blindly through the opening moves and just kind of playing on autopilot, when actually it's, as I said, the one part of the game that we're always going to play. So that's the plan. I'm doing it for my own benefit. We will have these videos in Wicklow Backgammon Club, so for beginners there'll be some videos that'll be more helpful than others, and some that might be a little bit too detailed, some that might be too easy for others. So we'll kind of work our way through it over the next few months. My intention is, if I give it a few months and just become an expert at the opening, my own game is going to be vastly improved as well. So that's the logic of it. As I said, we're going to be there's an excellent book by Japanese writer Michi called Opening Concepts. Everyone recommends it as a good starting point. It's not cheap, but it's a good, really good one to get you thinking, and available on Amazon if you want to kind of go through it. But my intention is to kind of go through section by section and look at it. But before we even get to it, I'm going to do a few video lessons before we even get to it, just certain things that might help it more straightforward. And this particular lesson is for people who may have done the beginner's course in Wicklow Backgammon Club and are moving into this. Just some words, and we have a tendency to use terms in backgammon. There's nothing complicated in what we're doing, but the words can make it sound complicated. So I just thought I'd explain some of these terms. And the first of these is splitting. And what that means is, if you look at where the usual format, all the videos will be this format, where we'll be bearing into the bottom right, coming around counterclockwise. And if you look at the top right, we've our 2 back checkers there. We could use our 2 to move one of them forward, and that's called splitting. When you break those 2 up, you split. Alternatively, you might use the 1 to split them. And either way, it's good to get your back checkers moving to split them. Whether you play the 2 or the 1, you're making what's called a minor split. But you might, if say we rolled a 5 and a 4, don't worry about the 5. But if the 4, we might pull our back checker forward 4. That's called a major split. If we move it forward 4 or 3, it's called a major split. And the idea behind that is, we're hoping to make our golden anchor. You'll have heard in the beginner's course we talk about an advanced anchor. So we're hoping that somewhere down the line we might be in a position like this, where we've made an advanced anchor. And we're in a much more strong position as a result of that. You're going to hear over the course, if you follow these video lessons, I'll be coming back to a few times a guy called Albert Stegg who did an awful lot of work on the opening moves, and he kind of came up with 4 principles. And one of these principles is that stragglers want splitting. In other words, your back checkers, it's good to get them split because it's easier to make anchors. It's easier to kind of get them moving early before your opponent kind of suddenly starts to take over in that sort of direction of the board. So he'd say early on, make sure you can get a split. And he said, looking at our rearmost checkers up in the top right there, if we can split them there, we're already starting to move them, and we're already far more likely to get an anchor with not having to roll the same number twice. So that's why splitting kind of works. Another concept we talk about is builders. Builders are very straightforward. It's just, if you look at the top left on our 13 point, we have 5 checkers there, and if we played a 4, we could use one of them with the 4, maybe even one of them with the 3. Those 2 blocks that we've made there now, they could get hit, but they're also there. They're very handy as builders. If we don't get hit, we can use them in the next go, and we're probably going to be making a good point with them. So we're kind of they're building blocks towards kind of a strong position for us, and that's why they're called builders. And what we've done with them, we've brought the checker down from the midpoint. So here's another example, the 4-1. Again, looking up in the top left, our 13 point has 5 checkers on it. And if you just hear might say in one of these videos, we bring a checker down. It just means we've moved it from the 13 point forward by 4, or down into the next section of the board. And obviously, when we look at it in this video, it's like it is coming down. If you're playing on a board, you might say, well, I'm not bringing anything down, I'm bringing it across. But just that's what it means. And just if you hear me talking about bringing something down, that's what I'm talking about. Slotting, another just term that you might hear about. In this situation, we roll a 2-1. Well, we'll probably bring a checker down, just exactly like that we've just done with the 2. So look at the top left in our 13 point. We bring one of them down. But with the 1, we might slot the 1. Slotting means putting a checker, a blot in our home board. It could get hit, so it is a little bit vulnerable. But if it doesn't get hit, we're making a really good point next time. So slotting means when you've kind of put one checker in place in the hope that you can cover it in the next go, and you've made yourself a good point. And you said, I'll probably talk about slotting at some stage over the course of this course. Now, an important one, spares, strip points and stack points. So if we have a single checker on a point, it's called a blot, and you probably know that by now. But if we can get a second checker there, our blot can be hit and sent back. But once we've got 2 checkers on a point, we've made that point. It's called a point to us. We've made that point. We can put another checker on that, and that's called a spare. And it's really good. That point in particular, our 8 point, it's really important to try and keep a spare on that. So even at the start of the game, if you look at the start of the game, we start with a spare on it for a particularly good reason, and you don't want to lose that spare. So it's really helpful to have that spare, because if we can hit one of black's checkers now, we won't be taking away our point. But if we were to lose that spare, that we still own that point, but it's called a stripped point, because we've no spares. So if we hit one of black checkers, we're going to be leaving ourselves vulnerable. We'll be using one of the 2 checkers we need. So a stripped point is when you've only got 2 checkers on it. It's still a point. It's still a good thing to have, but it's so much handier if you've got a spare. And indeed, you can have 2 spares. Sometimes it gives you even more flexibility. But what you want to avoid is having a 3rd spare, because now you've got what's called a stack. And a stack is bad, because it's inflexible. If we've got all those checkers on that point, they're not doing something else that we really need them to be doing somewhere else. So we'll try to avoid stacks if we can. And Albert Stegg, again, another of his principles at the start was stacks want unstacking. We want to try and avoid stacks if we can as well. Hitting and hitting loose, well, I'm sure you're aware of hitting now. If this is the position we're white, we roll a 2. It's very handy to hit black's loose checker there on the bottom left with the 2. But hitting loose is just a term where it basically means that we hit in our home board, in the bottom right, in our home board, we might fight for a good point, and we might just hit loose. So if you look at on our 5 point, black has a blot on our 5 point, and we might use the 1 to hit it. And you might say, oh, we could be hit back. Yes, we could, but sometimes it's a good thing to hit loose and take our chances. And if we could bring the 2 down onto our 11 point, if we don't get hit back, if black doesn't roll the right rolls, we can make that point next time, and we've won the good point. And Albert Stegg again says blots want hitting. Little principle, if you can, it's generally a good thing always to hit any of your opponent's blots outside your home board. It's sometimes the right thing to hit inside your home board as well. But if there's a blot that's not in your home board, you can be pretty much guaranteed, with one exception, that's right to hit it. So you get this situation here, 4-2, you might say, well, look, we play 4-4, we'll make our 4 point with 8-4 and 6-4. But that's a mistake. The correct thing to do is to hit. Our black has a checker there in the bottom left, a blot in the bottom left quadrant. So we can come down with the 4 and hit it there. It's nearly always right to hit. The only time when it's wrong is a 3-1. 3-1 are, you might think, well, I could do that. Surely that's the same thing. And we've hit, and we can even protect that point. It's better. The 5 point, our 5 point, our golden point is so valuable that even though we can hit, we're better off making our 5 point. So Albert Stegg has said, he comes up, these are his 4 principles. At the start, in the early part of the game, if you can hit a blot, it's usually the right thing to do. These are kind of in order. If you can't hit a blot, but you can make a point, kind of the right thing to do. If you can't hit a blot or make a point, maybe split at the back. And the big thing is then, if you've nothing else to do, just start unstacking your stacks. Is never a bad thing. Very quickly, gammon go and gammon save are not particularly important terms for you to be aware of, but it talks about aggression. So in a situation where we're playing the first to 5 points, and there are 3 points, a gammon, don't forget, a gammon gets us 2 points. So we're playing to 5 points. We could win a game before all, but if we could win a gammon, we'd win the whole match. So gammon go just means that we're really going for it, and we might play a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more recklessly, or not recklessly, but riskily. We'll take the risk because we get a gammon, we win the whole match. On the other hand, gammon save, if you look at this situation, it's first to 5, we're 4-3 up. We'd like to win this game, but if we don't win this game, the big thing is we don't give them a gammon, because if they get a gammon, they win this game. So we're playing gammon save here, which means, yeah, we'll try and win. Obviously, we want to win, but we're going to play fairly safely. So big thing is we don't give away a gammon by being, just too adventurous. The concept of DMP, double match point, is important. It's much easier than it might sound. It simply means a situation where gammons don't matter. So we're in a situation where we are both, whoever wins the next game wins the match. So that's all that we're going to do. We're playing for the game. We're not worrying about gammons. That just means, look, gammons don't matter. If gammons don't matter, you're a double match point. So if we're playing to 5 points, it could be that's 4-all. Look, you can get a backgammon for win 3 points. Doesn't matter. You just need to win the game. Or it could be we're playing first to 5 points. We're 4-3 up, but they've doubled us. So now if they win the game, they're getting 2 points. So that effectively, gammons still don't matter, even though they need 2 points, because they're going to get the 2 points with the double. So DMP just is a situation where gammons don't matter, and sometimes some of the opening moves are different. If you don't need to play risks because you don't care about gammons, you're just trying to race around as fast as possible. Naturals are just moves that are the easy and the obvious moves at the start. So with a 6-5, you're just going to know it's called Lover's Leap, where you look at our top right, our back checker, we move 6 and then 5, and it's safe. So some of the opening moves are very straightforward, and they're called the naturals. Don't worry about that. The big thing we're going to do, though, over the next few lessons, we're going to look at what are the best opening moves. So the next 2 lessons are going to be look at literally, if you go first, you win the row, what's the right move to play? And it's surprisingly easy to know that. Much trickier. I'll be doing a couple of lessons on the best opening replies. That is definitely advanced backgammon stuff, and it's much trickier to know, and I'll explain why. And then we'll be looking at the general principles behind how to play in the first few moves of the game. And I said we'll be guided by that gentleman in the photograph there, Mitchie, who's one of the top backgammon writers and has written this book, Opening Concepts, which we're going to study over the course of the next few months as well. Tiny bit of homework for you, if you like. I mentioned in the beginner's course about the importance of one particular piece of software, one app for your phone, if you like. It's called XG, or Extreme Gammon. It's a brilliant app to have. And Tim Cross, a great backgammon grandmaster and teacher, has this training exercise that I think I do, and I kind of find it very helpful. He calls it the 5x5 training exercise, and there's a video about it. If you look up Backgammon is Beautiful and the 5x5, you'll find a YouTube video about it. Basically, you play XG, you play a match to unlimited points, or I always put it into something like 31 points, and you play the first 5 moves, and then you resign. And then you play another game, you play the first 5 moves, and then you resign. So you play basically 5 moves of 5 games, and then you get your score from XG and see how well you do. And your target obviously is to get the lower PR and to get the better score all the time. So it's a good way of just saying, am I doing the opening moves right? Just the first 5 moves, and am I doing them right? So that's it for for this introductory lesson on terminology. The next 2 videos I'll be looking at, well, what are the right opening moves? And we'll look at one where I'll do it opening moves by kind of sort of category, and then I'm going to do a second video because otherwise the video will be too long, which is just going to be number by number by number, what is the right move to make.